psychology of learning, I am going to cover the different meaning and the concept of learning, and the characteristics and nature of learning, and different theories how learning happens, the conceptual framework of learning theories, and different domains and layers of learning, and how the learners learn in different styles, and I try to conclude. First, let us see what is the meaning and the concept of learning. When you say learning, learning is a process of assimilating information with the resultant change in behavior. That means, at the end of the learning, there is a change in the learner about his behavior. When you say behavior, it may be a part of information or knowledge, or increase in the skill, or change in the attitude, preferably a positive attitude at the end of the learning. When you say learning is a process, it involves three important components. The first and most important component of learning to happen is a motive or a drive. A learner should have a felt need to learn. Until unless he has a motive or a drive to learn, nobody can make him to learn. The second important component in the learning is an attractive goal. So, the learner should be satisfied with the outcome of the learning. Maybe it may be a degree, or it may be if you are getting a physical thing or getting a mental thing. That attractive goal is the essential part in the process of learning. A third and very trivial thing is a block to attainment of the goal. Block means obstacles in the process of learning, which itself will have a important component in the learning. The obstacle may not be so simple, neither too difficult, so that it will arrest the interest of the first part, the motive of the learner. These three important components are there in the process of learning. When you say characteristics of learning, when you say learning is characterized by the individual, the learner, how he is able to adjust or adapt to the new environment, and there is an improvement in the learning. At the end of the learning, there should be an improvement in aptitude or some information in what he learns. Learning is organized experiences. Learner should cognitively able to experience and make use this previous experience in the new situation. And learning brings behavioral change. As already told, the change may be improved in the knowledge, improved in the attitude, improved in the skill. And learning is an active. The characteristic of learning is the learner should actively participate in the learning. It is not a passive process. Learning is a goal directed. Any learning should reach to particular goal for which the learning happens. That. And learning is universal and continuous. When you say universal, learning happens in any individual. And when you say continuous, learning is continuous. The day you born as a child to the day we die, it is the process of learning is a continuous. Now, when you say learning, learning do not happen in a linear process. It has different steps. This learning curve represents how learning takes place in a particular situation. Any task will happen that when the task is difficult, depending on the task, the learning starts firstly the slow process. And once the learner mastered that the obstacles in learning, then when he knows how to break that, the learning proceed in a progress way. But at what level? At particular stage, the learning process will, no apparent progress is reached. And this is called a plateau. And this has great significance for the teachers and educational psychologists. How to break this plateau? The learner may develop during the process of learning certain bad habits or demotivation, which makes the learning reach a plateau. So, a teacher or learner should understand why the learning reach a plateau. If you understand the phenomena behind the plateau, you can break, and the teacher can facilitate the enhanced learning. And let us come to the different theories of learning. The theories are different conceptual frameworks how learning process. There are different theories of learning in the psychology. The different types of theories includes theory of a trial and error learning, the classical conditioning, operant conditioning, social learning, that means we learn by observing others. But here in this, I am going to cover only one theory, that is called theory of trial and error learning. This theory, friends, it is proposed by E.L. Thorndike, an American educational psychologist, who says that learning happens when a learner makes repeated attempts and make errors and how he can overcome the errors to master a particular task. As per Thorndike, in this theory he proposed three very important laws of learning any educationalist or teacher should learn. The first and foremost law is the law of readiness. This law says that one can learn if one is ready to learn. This law says the significance of motivation is the first step in the process of learning. The second law is law of exercise. Here the learning reads repetition and drill. Learning do not happen at instant. The learner should repeat the task which is the master that. That is called law of exercise. The third and most important law is law of effect. The effect of consequences decides the fate of one learning. Whether the consequences are pleasant or unpleasant, that decides the path of each future learning. These three laws are very important to understand and make use in the teaching learning process to be effective. Now, when you say that learning is not unidirectional. As per Benjamin Bloom's American educational psychologist who famously called Bloom's taxonomy, the domains of learning falls into three domains: cognitive domain, affective domain and psychomotor domain. When you say cognitive domains, which involves thinking and problem skills, where the teacher should facilitate or encourage the student to think and solve problems. That is, affective domains, where the emotional component is important and interpersonal growth, where the teacher should facilitate students to interact with his peers and build a self-confidence in the individual. That is another important component of the learning domain. The third is psychomotor domain, where physical activities, the practical sections, or experiential learning. The learner should be able to handle the problems on hand with the physical domain, where these three domains are important. Now, another important contribution of that Benjamin Bloom is, when we say cognitive domain, mostly think knowledge domain, we think that we confine to the cognitive domain to the remembering, understanding, which is the lowest most part of this cognitive domain. Whereas, what we understand should be, we have to apply this in the new environment and analyze it and evaluate, and ultimately the highest domain of cognitive domain is the creating something new, creating an idea, creating a thing, creating a particular solution. The teacher should recognize, when you offer this mental domain or cognitive domain, should, apart from remembering, understanding the concepts, the teacher should facilitate the learner this analyzing and evaluating and creating should happen in the learner's process. The next very important component is the learning styles. Learners do learn in different styles. These are the various approaches or ways of learning. Let us see what are the different learning styles of the learners. The first and foremost is, the classification says that there is an active domain learners and reflective learners. Whereas active learners learn by doing something with their hands, they learn by doing that, whereas reflective learners learn by thinking first. Since the active learners do actions, they tend to like group work, whereas the reflective learners, since the thinking is the first step before they do, it is they prefer to work alone. And the second learning style is sensing and intuition learners. Sensing learners tend to like learning facts. They want to, what is the facts and figures, they want to draw conclusion based on the available data, and they dislike complications. Whereas intuition learners prefer discovering possibilities and relationships. You are given a task, they will think out of the box and they think what is the possibilities and what is the ways and means of arriving a solution in different ways. The third and most important, very important classification of learning style is visual and verbal learners. Visual learners learn best what they see. They learn better if the teacher gives a pictures, diagrams and flowcharts, whereas verbal learners get more out of words. It may be written or spoken explanations. The last learning style is the sequential and global learners. Sequential learners in a linear logical steps. Here the conventional, the classroom, the teacher gives step 1, 2, 3, 4 to arrive at a particular solution with a logical fashion. These people call sequential learner, whereas in 1% of the learners is the global learners. They do not bother the steps, they will jump to the solutions directly, and these people feel challenged to solve the complex problems. These are the different styles. and what is the practical utility of knowing what type of styles the learners do have that. By and large, the learning styles are different ways and means of educating methods, particularly to an individual, that are presumed to allow that individual to learn best. What type of learning style is important to learner to happen that. And the teachers should assess what learning styles are there. Accordingly, the teacher should change each teaching styles, and to make an effective learning, the learning and teaching style should match. This theory of fitting, matching the learning and the teaching styles is called meshing hypothesis. Finally, with this brief introduction of psychology learning, this knowledge of psychology learning will give an insight into what makes people learn most effectively, and it helps, this knowledge helps the teacher in modifying his or her approach to teaching the learning process, and the knowledge of psychology learning makes useful the teacher to be effective teachers, and he can able to achieve excellence in teaching by understanding the knowledge and principles of learning. Thank you.